All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're tackling a pretty fascinating concept,
Yeah.
Predictability versus unpredictability.
Oh, that's a good one.
And, it's amazing how these two, like, seemingly opposite forces really shape, well, so much, right? I mean, our lives, our routines, even like the whole course of history, right?
True, yeah.
So we're gonna uncover just how much of what we consider, quote unquote, normal is really just this kind of delicate dance between these two forces, right? These powerful concepts.
And what's really cool is that, this whole interplay isn't just some philosophical debate. It's like woven into the very fabric of how societies function and how we live our lives.
Exactly, yeah. And a lot of our sources suggest that predictability is like the bedrock, right? Like it's the foundation.
Yeah.
Like a house needs a strong foundation.
Yeah, yeah.
Civilization needs predictability.
Yeah.
Right? So we're talking about things like laws, social norms, economic systems. All of that brings order, brings stability.
It's interesting to think about, like, from a historical perspective, like, think about predictable seasons, right?
Yeah.
That allowed, like, our early ancestors to shift from being, like, nomadic hunter-gatherers to settled farmers, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about, like, having a steady food supply, but it was about, forging communities, creating those social structures, and eventually, building whole empires.
Wow.
Could the human story have unfolded the same way without that predictability?
It's such a great point, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, just to kind of bring it back to our modern lives, right? It's like, our daily routines, everything from that first cup of coffee in the morning to, going to work, commuting to work.
Right.
All of those things, they create a framework that really helps us, right? It reduces our stress and it allows us to function more,
Efficiently,
exactly.
And I think there's, like, almost a comfort in that too, right?
Yeah, there's a comfort in knowing what to expect, right?
Yeah, and it kind of frees up mental space to, like, focus on other things.
Totally.
So it's not all bad, right?
But, and here's where it gets interesting.
Uh-oh.
The sources also point out that too much predictability can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Right?
How so?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like if you think about, a vacation that's perfectly scheduled, like every minute is planned out.
Yeah.
It might be really efficient, but it might not be very fun.
Right. You miss out on those spontaneous moments, those unexpected adventures.
Exactly. And our sources actually use standardized education as an example of this.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like it aims to provide this really structured learning environment, but some would argue that it comes at the cost of fostering creativity.
Interesting.
Right. And critical thinking.
Yeah. So it's like this balance then, right? How do we balance the need for order with the need for, a little bit of chaos?
Yeah. And that's where unpredictability comes in, right?
Yeah.
Because our sources really emphasize how important it is for progress, for pushing us beyond those comfort zones.
Totally. Think about scientific breakthroughs, right?
Yeah.
So many of those came from unexpected results.
Yeah.
Those aha moments where the initial plan went out the window and something amazing emerged.
It's like those happy accidents, right?
Exactly. And it's not just science, right? Like, history is full of examples where unpredictability has sparked social change.
Give me an example.
Think about, like, social movements, right? The civil rights movement that challenged the status quo, disrupted things, and ultimately led to these profound societal shifts.
So we've got predictability, laying the groundwork, like setting the stage, and then unpredictability comes in and shakes things up. Right. It's the catalyst for change.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do we find that sweet spot? That perfect balance?
The balance, yeah.
Because it feels like it's this constant,
tightrope walk.
Tightrope walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just like a tightrope walker needs balance, but also the ability to adjust to the wind, we need to find that blend of predictability and unpredictability in our life.
Right, and our sources suggest that it's not a one-size-fits-all. Right.
Of course not.
Like, it varies from person to person.
And across cultures.
And across cultures, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, some people just really crave routine.
They love the familiar.
Yeah, they find comfort in it.
Yeah.
Whereas others, they thrive on spontaneity. They need those new experiences.
And that's okay, right? Like, understanding where you fall on that spectrum.
Right.
Like what your personal comfort zone is, that's crucial for, like, living a fulfilling life. You know, some of us are wired to be explorers, right?
Right.
Drawn to the novelty and adventure, whereas others were natural architects, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Finding satisfaction in building order and structure.
It's so true. It's so true. So it's not about saying one approach is right or wrong. It's about recognizing and respecting those individual differences.
Exactly.
Right.
And let's not forget the cultural aspect, right?
It's interesting, yeah.
So like collectivist cultures often prioritize harmony and predictability as a way to maintain social cohesion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whereas individualistic cultures, they tend to value personal freedom, autonomy, which naturally embraces more unpredictability.
Right.
So it's fascinating to think about how those cultural values shape our perceptions.
Yeah, like what constitutes a good life.
Exactly. What a balanced life even means.
Right.
And it highlights the complexity, right?
Yeah.
This interplay between predictability and unpredictability.
Yeah.
It's not a simple equation, it's a dance.
It is. It's a dance. It's a dynamic dance.
A constantly shifting dance.
A constantly shifting dance. Exactly. Exactly. And it makes me think about technology.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Because technology is constantly evolving, right?
Yeah, it's disrupting things all the time.
Disrupting things all the time. And how does that fit into all this?
Well, technology has definitely like accelerated the pace of change, right?
Yeah.
Introduce these new levels of both predictability and unpredictability into our lives.
Okay.
So on one hand, we have access to like so much information. We can connect with people instantly across the globe.
Yeah.
But it also creates this sense of information overload, right?
It does, yeah.
And constant flux, which makes it hard to predict what's coming next.
Yeah.
So it's almost like this...
Like a double-edged sword, kind of?
It is. It's like this double-edged sword amplifying both predictability and unpredictability at the same time.
So how do we even navigate this?
Yeah, that's the real challenge, right?
Yeah.
Learning to harness the benefits of both forces while mitigating the potential downsides. We need new skills, new mindsets to adapt to this rapid change, but also maintain some sense of grounding and purpose.
Right. So finding that sweet spot is even more important now.
Absolutely.
In this rapidly evolving world.
More than ever.
More than ever. But how do we do that?
Well, one way is to become more aware of our own, like, personal preferences.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And how they influence our choices.
Okay.
Like, do we gravitate towards routine and structure, or do we seek out novelty and change?
Right.
Once we understand our own tendencies, we can start making more conscious decisions about how we balance these forces in our lives.
So it's not just about passively accepting whatever level of predictability or unpredictability we have. Right. It's about actively shaping it.
Yeah, you're taking ownership.
Yeah, you're taking ownership of your own predictability quotient, so to speak.
Exactly.
And it leads to this thought-provoking question. And our sources didn't really address this directly.
Okay.
But I think it's important.
What is it?
Knowing how important both are, both predictability and unpredictability. What one small change would you make this week to bring more of the missing element into your life?
That's a great question for listeners to think about.
Like if your life feels too routine.
Too predictable.
Too predictable. What could you do to shake things up a bit?
It could be as simple as trying a new restaurant.
Right.
Breaking a routine.
Yeah.
Maybe even starting a conversation with a stranger.
Yeah.
Just breaking out of those autopilot patterns and opening ourselves up to new experiences.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like variety is the spice of life, right?
It is, yeah.
And maybe for some people it's the opposite, right?
Yeah, if life feels too chaotic, too unpredictable.
Too unpredictable. What could you do?
Maybe creating some routines and rituals would help.
Yeah.
Could be as simple as like a consistent sleep schedule.
Yeah.
Dedicating time for focused work. Even a regular weekly meal plan.
Right.
These small acts of structure can bring some grounding.
Yeah.
And make navigating the day-to-day feel less overwhelming.
Totally. Yeah, it's like creating those little pockets of predictability. Right. Within the larger flow of life. So I guess, how do we know when we've struck the right balance?
That's a good question.
Are there signs we can look out for?
You know, it's less about finding like a perfect formula and more about paying attention to how you feel.
Okay.
Like if you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, creatively stifled, maybe you need more unpredictability.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you're anxious,
Yeah.
scattered, can't focus.
Yeah.
Maybe you need more structure.
More routine. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's really about tuning into ourselves.
Exactly,
Yeah.
to our own internal compass
Yeah.
and recognizing those emotional cues
Yeah.
that tell us we need to adjust the balance.
It's an ongoing process.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Life's constantly throwing curveballs.
It is.
So our needs for predictability and unpredictability will shift over time.
Right.
The key is to be adaptable, right?
Okay.
Willing to experiment until we find what feels right for us.
Makes sense.
In each moment.
In each moment.
Yeah.
This whole conversation makes me think about, like, our tolerance for uncertainty,
Oh,
right?
it's interesting.
Like, some people just seem to embrace the unknown,
Yeah.
right, with
Yeah.
open arms.
Yeah.
But other people really crave that sense of security.
They need the control.
The control, yeah. So where do you think that comes from?
I think it's a huge factor in determining where we feel comfortable, right? On that spectrum of predictability versus unpredictability.
Yeah.
It's probably rooted in our personalities,
Okay.
past experiences, even our cultural backgrounds.
Interesting.
Yeah, it all plays a role.
So I guess the question is, are there benefits to stepping outside of our comfort zones?
back in.
Even if we naturally lean towards one side or the other?
Yeah, even in small ways, pushing our boundaries
Yeah.
can lead to some incredible growth
Okay.
and self-discovery.
And so for someone who thrives on routine,
Yeah.
what could they do?
Maybe take a spontaneous trip.
Okay.
Try a new activity. They might unlock hidden passions,
Right.
talents they didn't even know they had.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, someone who loves spontaneity,
Yeah.
what could they do to benefit from a little more predictability?
Maybe committing to a regular practice like meditation journaling, something that brings that grounding, that clarity
Right, yeah.
they didn't even realize they were missing.
So it all comes back to balance.
It always does. It's about embracing the beauty of both predictability and unpredictability.
Yeah.
Recognizing that they're not opposing forces.
Right.
They're complementary aspects of a fulfilling life.
I like that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
what's the key takeaway you hope listeners walk away with?
I hope they gain a deeper appreciation for this dynamic interplay
Yeah.
between predictability and unpredictability.
Yeah.
And how it shapes not only their lives, but the world around them.
Right.
By understanding it. They can make more conscious choices about how they navigate the world, embrace change,
Yeah.
cultivate a life that's both stable and exciting.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
It's not about choosing one over the other.
Right.
It's about finding that harmony
The perfect harmony.
that allows us to thrive
Exactly.
as individuals and as a society.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly,
Yeah.
I hope they feel empowered to experiment.
Yes.
Right.
To step outside those comfort zones, discover the magic that happens
Yeah.
when we embrace the unexpected.
This has been an incredible conversation.
It has.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
There's always more to explore.
There is. But for now,
Yeah.
I hope listeners will take these ideas
Yeah.
and continue the conversation in their own lives,
Absolutely.
reflecting on how predictability and unpredictability shape their experiences,
Their choices.
their vision for the future.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe this deep dive will inspire them to shake things up a bit,
Try something new.
try something new.
Embrace the adventure.
Embrace the adventure of life's unpredictable journey.
Absolutely. Right.
Right.
Love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
pick this back up
We'll continue the conversation
on the next one.
on the next part.
Part of this deep dive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
So it's like we're constantly fine-tuning these dials.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Adjusting our own predictability quotient,
Mhm.
as we go through life.
It's not about like striving for this perfect ratio or anything. It's more about like being mindful of the interplay
Yeah.
and making choices that align with our own needs and goals.
Right. So if someone feels like their life is, stuck in a rut, like maybe too much predictability,
Yeah.
what kind of small change could they make?
Well, anything that injects a bit of novelty,
Okay.
into their routine.
Yeah.
It could be taking a different route to work,
Okay.
trying a new hobby, even just like starting a conversation with a stranger.
Oh,
Just like breaking out of those autopilot patterns, opening ourselves up to new experiences.
I love that.
Yeah.
Reminds me of that saying, variety is the spice of life.
Exactly.
But what about the flip side?
Yeah.
If someone feels like their life is too chaotic,
Too much unpredictability.
Too unpredictable, how can they bring in more stability?
That's where creating routines and rituals can be super helpful.
Okay.
Like establishing a consistent sleep schedule,
Right.
setting aside dedicated time for work,
Okay.
even having like a regular weekly meal plan.
Okay.
Just small acts of structure that can provide that grounding.
Yeah, yeah.
Make navigating the day-to-day feel less overwhelming.
It's like those little pockets of predictability.
Exactly.
Like within the larger flow of life.
Exactly.
So how do we know when we've struck that right balance?
That's a good question.
Are there signs?
Again, it's less about a formula
Right.
and more about paying attention to how you feel.
Okay.
If you're stressed, overwhelmed, creatively stifled,
Yeah.
maybe you need more unpredictability.
Okay.
On the other hand, anxious, scattered, can't focus,
Yeah.
maybe you need more structure.
More routine. Okay.
More routine, exactly.
So tuning in to our internal compass.
Your internal compass, yeah.
Recognizing those cues
Yeah.
that tell us we need to adjust.
It's an ongoing process, right?
It is.
Life is constantly throwing curveballs.
It is.
So our needs for predictability and unpredictability are going to shift over time.
Right.
You got to be adaptable,
Yeah.
willing to experiment to find that sweet spot
Makes sense.
for you in the moment.
In the moment. Yeah, this makes me think about our tolerance for uncertainty.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people just embrace the unknown.
They do.
Right. But others really crave that sense of security and control.
Yeah, they want to know what's coming.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think it's a huge factor in determining where we feel comfortable
Right.
on that predictability versus unpredictability spectrum.
Right.
It's probably rooted in our personalities,
Okay.
our past experiences, even our
Mhm.
cultural backgrounds.
Oh, interesting.
It all plays a role.
So are there benefits to stepping outside of our comfort zones?
Absolutely.
Even if we naturally lean towards one side or the other?
Even in small ways,
Mm-hmm.
pushing those boundaries can lead to incredible growth and self-discovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for someone who thrives on routine,
Yeah.
what could they do?
Maybe take a spontaneous trip,
Huh.
try a new activity. They might unlock hidden passions,
Right.
talents they didn't even know they had.
That's cool. And then on the flip side,
Yeah.
someone who loves spontaneity,
Mhm.
what could they do?
Maybe commit to a regular practice,
Okay.
like meditation, journaling, something that brings grounding. Clarity they didn't even realize they were missing.
So it all comes back to balance.
It always does.
It's about embracing the beauty of both.
Exactly.
Predictability and unpredictability.
Not as opposing forces, but as complementary aspects of a fulfilling life.
I like that. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
what's the key takeaway you hope listeners walk away with?
I hope they gain a deeper appreciation for this dynamic interplay
Yeah.
between predictability and unpredictability,
Right.
and how it shapes not only their own lives but the world around them.
Right.
By understanding it,
Yeah.
they can make more conscious choices about how they navigate the world, embrace change,
Mm-hmm.
cultivate a life that's both stable and exciting.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
It's not about choosing one over the other.
Right.
It's about finding that perfect harmony.
That perfect harmony. Yeah.
Allows us to thrive as individuals and as a society.
Exactly.
And perhaps most importantly, I hope they feel empowered to experiment, to step outside of their comfort zones.
Yes.
Discover the
do.
magic that happens when we embrace the unexpected.
This has been an incredible conversation.
It has.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
There's always more to explore.
There is, but for now,
Yeah.
I hope listeners will take these ideas and continue the conversation in their own lives,
Absolutely.
reflecting on how predictability and unpredictability shape their experiences, their choices.
Their vision for the future.
Their vision for the future, yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe this deep dive will inspire them to shake things up a bit, try something new, embrace the adventure of life's unpredictable journey.
That's the goal.
Right. It's like we've got this cool box, right?
Yeah.
Filled with predictability and unpredictability.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to choose which tools we want to use at
Good.
different times
Yeah.
to create like the best, the most fulfilling experience possible.
That's a great way to think about it. And just like any craftsperson,
Yeah.
it takes practice to master these tools.
Absolutely. Experimentation.
Experimentation, right?
A willingness to adapt.
To adapt.
Yeah, because life's always changing.
It is. It is.
The landscape is constantly shifting.
So it's not about fearing the unexpected or, clinging to routine too tightly.
Yep.
It's about using both of these forces to our advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
Like approaching life as an adventure
Yeah.
with predictable elements providing that like sense of grounding
Right.
and those unpredictable moments adding the spice, the excitement.
Makes me think of those, choose your own adventure books we read as kids.
Yeah.
We had the basic storyline, but our choices really determined, like the twists and turns.
Right.
And life is kind of like that, isn't it?
It is. We have agency.
We do.
We have the power to make choices
Right.
that influence where we end up.
Yeah. And who knows what we might find, when we go off the beaten path.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of it, right?
That's the beauty of unpredictability, yeah.
Yeah. It opens us up to all these possibilities
That we never would have imagined.
that we might have missed otherwise.
Exactly.
And even if those detours
Yeah.
lead to challenges, difficulties, we learn from those.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
We build resilience.
We become more adaptable, more resourceful.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave listeners with this thought.
Right?
What small step
Yeah.
can you take today to embrace both predictability and unpredictability in your life?
That's the question, yeah.
What could that be? Maybe it's booking that trip
Yeah, that spontaneous trip you've been thinking about.
or starting a new project, something
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just saying yes,
To something unexpected.
right, to an opportunity.
Exactly.
Whatever it is, approach it with curiosity,
An open mind.
an open mind,
A willingness to step outside your comfort zone.
right? Because you never know.
You never know.
The most incredible discoveries might be right around the corner.
Yeah, just beyond the realm of the expected.
This has been so insightful.
It has.
I really appreciate you, coming on and sharing your expertise with us.
It's been a pleasure.
And I really hope that our listeners, will take these ideas
Mm-hmm.
and continue this conversation in their own lives.
Yeah, keep exploring. Keep questioning.
Right.
Keep embracing that beautiful dance of life.
And that's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
This is DigitView.